Alrighty, welcome to Podcast with a K, episode number 2, index 2, however you want to look at it. Um, this is a podcast where we have real talk, and we have real talk. I'm your host, Christian Mishka. This is co-host Steven Laczko, and
Hello.
we're going to be talking about real talk, uppercase R, to start it off. And the topic of the day is the shoulds.
The shoulds.
The
This
shoulds.
is a topic near and dear to my heart, Christian. You know this.
I do know this.
We've talked about this quite a few times before, but let's go back to the beginning here,
Mm-hmm.
uh, where we first sort of started thinking about this. Uh, and I want to tip my hat in the direction of Dr. K on Twitch and YouTube. He's a therapist or psychologist, something like that. He's got a PhD, and he's got great videos.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, shall I just introduce
Go for it.
what we're doing?
Yeah.
Alrighty. So me and Christian found this guy Dr. K online, and he does a lot of talks that are more or less therapy sessions with online personalities like Pokimane and all sorts of people. But Pokimane in particular, his talk with her, he talked about something that caught both of our ears, and that was shoulds. Pokimane in particular struggled with stuff like perfectionism and feeling like she should always be doing something. And Dr. K really like narrowed in on this stuff and pointed out a lot of things like that she never gave herself a break. And another very important part of it was that she used the language of shoulds very often. And I wanted to talk about that just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So, Christian, initial thoughts. Let's start off with like, what is a should?
Sure. I mean, it's basically like it's a responsibility that you think you have. It's like something that is either self-imposed or is an expectation that is from others, and it's just something that a person feels like they ought to be doing. Like, oh, I should be doing this. And it's just like a voice in your head that's telling you that something's not right, that you're not doing something the way that that there's some expectation that you're not meeting. And that could be self-imposed, like I said, or it could be from external sources like people, friends, society. Um, but yeah, basically, it's something that is just nagging you, that you feel like you should be doing.
And there's nothing inherently wrong with a should.
Yeah.
Sometimes we should do things.
Hmm.
Like there are things that are important to us that are our priority, and thus we decide that we should be doing them.
Right. Or they're like morally bound. Um,
Mm-hmm.
oh, my lights are going crazy right now.
Whoa, they just went on.
It's
That's
9 o'clock,
mysterious.
so let me switch that.
Mm-hmm. They can be morally bound,
Hmm.
and those are valid. There's a certain sense of the word should that is valid,
Yes.
and is useful in conversation, in everyday language. But there's another form of should that I think is very toxic, and I think Christian, you agree with that.
Hmm.
Um, this form of should is is pervasive in the minds of a lot of people. It was pervasive in me and Christian, in mine and Christian's minds, and it's easiest to describe in how it comes out, which is that you're often telling yourself you should be doing something, and even if you don't use the word, it's implied. Like there's a feeling behind it.
Hmm.
That's the most important thing. Um, and I think what it boils down to is something like I'm not doing something right. It's judging yourself. It's frequent judgment of yourself, and it comes out in the language of should. So, Christian, can I ask just a little bit about your experience with shoulds and how they sort of affected your mental well-being?
Sure. Wow. Out of the blue. um, yeah. So I mean, I have to think. They, I guess I've seen them in different areas of my life. School being a primary area, I think, like especially expectations with homework and grades and stuff. But
Hmm.
also other areas as well. But it's like you should be getting good grades, right?
Right.
Might be one, and that might not necessarily be something that was self-imposed or imposed by specific people. It could have been just because like I was getting good grades at one point, and then people are like, "Oh, he's the smart person. Gets good grades," and then there's a feedback loop where it's like, "Oh, I should be getting good grades because I'm a smart person," um,
Hmm.
and that's not necessarily a healthy thing to have, and especially I guess how it applies in school, right? Like if you're good at one thing, you might not be good at another thing. So trying to translate that loop to other areas of your life is not effective. Um,
Hmm.
and I think definitely that was probably one of the bigger ways that it affected me with my expectations, or yeah, I guess the way that I perceive the expectations of others. Um, I'd have to think about some others,
Would
but
you say that it laid more of a sorry? Oh, my hat! Oh
oh no.
gosh, that's expensive. Okay, I'll get that in a second. Um, would you say that others' expectations laid a heavier weight on you, or was it your own expectations for yourself?
It was definitely my own. Yeah, it like I don't think I ever thought that it was from someone else. Like they
Mm,
were others' expectations until I realized that it was probably like implicitly it came from them.
mm,
It was definitely like it it definitely felt like something that was coming from internal, like, oh, I should be doing this. And then there might have been some sort of I should be doing this because of this. Um, and that because wasn't always logical, I guess. Um, which is weird
yeah.
because I'm a pretty logical person. So I guess,
Mm,
yeah, I guess like some things it's like, oh, I should do this because it makes sense. It's the only thing to get to this goal. It's the only thing. It's the only means to this end. And we had talked before that this is very like instrumental or logical. It's like, well, okay, this begets that. But then there's like these other kinds of shoulds that are more compulsory or demanding. It's like trying to get something. You're trying to get something out of it, and it's not necessarily like to your benefit.
hmm. And I do feel like the distinction isn't necessarily summed up in this, but it has something to do with it. The distinction between those types of shoulds, let me clarify, is something about making a judgment on yourself. And
Definitely.
on there's a judgment, and on some level it's judging how good of a person you are.
Mm,
Maybe not morally, or it could be moral. In fact, for me, I'd say it was moral more often than not.
hmm
But just judging whether or not you're a good student. You know,
Right.
am I slipping because my grades slipped? Like I was good back then. Am I weakening now? Am I getting worse?
hmm Definitely. Yeah, I guess like the distinction between like going off of that distinction, right? If you have a should that is very instrumental, something begets something, it has nothing to do with you. It's like, oh, well, I do this like I I call the doctor so I can get a checkup, right? Well, that's pretty
Mm-hmm.
clear. I'm not going to judge myself for, doing those things. Maybe someone would. But if it's like, oh, I should get good grades because good grade, like whatever reason can be found, right? Um, the judgment is then, oh, I'm realizing I'm not getting good grades, therefore I'm not a good person or not meeting some sort of standard
Mm-hmm.
that I've set for myself, and that is definitely an issue where that judgment, as you mentioned, comes in.
Mm-hmm. And you know what I've been noticing a couple times while we've been talking is
Hmm
that a lot of these things incorporate some kind of inaccurate thinking.
mm,
Like for instance, and I think it also has to do with me. For me, it had to do with anxiety. I won't put words in your mouth for sure, but um, inaccurate thinking, as in like, okay, if I get a B in this course, something bad is going to happen, or it could very well be just that if I get a B in this course, I'm a worse person, I'm a worse student, I'm not meeting my own standard.
hmm
Um, for a lot of people, I think they would justify it though. If you were to ask them, why do you need perfect grades? They might justify it as, Well, you need good grades to get a job. You need really good grades, and
Hmm.
I'm just trying my best. And they're potentially hurting themselves or diminishing their mental health in the process. So they justify it with inaccurate thinking. If it was truly accurate, there wouldn't be room to judge yourself,
Sure.
is how I think. It's kind of like, okay, if I don't do this, I'm going to get a job or I'm going to not get a job and I'm going to be homeless. Okay, if you knew that for sure, okay, yeah, you do the thing. That's probably a good idea.
Yeah.
But you don't know for sure, and getting a B is not the end of the world.
Hmm. Hmm. It's irrational.
Right, right. And there's a certain level of, at least for me, there's a certain level of anxiety with these things
Hmm.
that I felt something bad might happen in the future, or I'm going to just keep slipping. It's kind of like a slippery slope fallacy. Like I
Right.
don't want to give a little because I'll start giving more. I
Hmm.
don't want to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
But
interesting.
let me throw in my experience
Yep.
here. So I grew up in the church, Christian church, and all my life, Christian family, going to church all my life, and this is not everyone's story in the Christian church. I definitely know that, but it turned out to be mine, and I'm not the only one. But um, I ended up having sort of a guilt complex, I think, and what came out of that was shoulds, a lot of shoulds, and this was daily,
Hmm.
daily, like almost minute by minute, shoulds constantly. Like if I went upstairs or if I came out of my room and got breakfast and didn't, you know, say hi or seem cheerful enough for my family to brighten their day, then that was on me. That was my fault. Like I should be doing this thing. I
Hmm.
should be making their lives better. I should be being growing this relationship. And everything that I was doing that didn't assist me in those really quite abstract goals a lot of the time, what I felt like I should be doing, it was wrong. And in my case, it was sin,
Hmm.
or at least something like that. I wasn't sure if it was exactly that, but yeah, it was definitely a moral should for me. It wasn't. It was my own standard, but it was also a standard that was sort of that I developed from an external source. And it was very pervasive in my life. Like shoulds just clouded my judgment all the time, and inaccurate thinking was definitely part of it. Like it's not a big deal if I don't say hi to a friend for one day.
Yeah.
It's not that big of a deal, realistically. But there's this inaccurate level of thinking that blows things out of proportion, and it's not healthy. And for anyone out there who's dealing with these sorts of with these thoughts, if you find yourself feeling bad, if you find yourself judging yourself, that's a good one. And if you find yourself saying I should be doing this a lot, just kind of in the back of your mind or under your breath, these are things to look into for sure.
Definitely. Especially if,
Hmm.
like, I mean, if that's your primary mode of judging yourself, and you don't even know the value of the judgment that you're assigning to yourself, it's like, um, it's probably more important to understand, like, understand why you're judging yourself as opposed to just accepting whatever preconceived judgments you have of yourself. Um,
Mm. Yeah.
because if you're just going off of like, oh, it's what I know, it's what I've done, this is the values that I have, and you're not breaking those down, then you're not going to understand like why are you judging yourself this way.
Hmm.
Um, and I think yeah, one you mentioned like saying hi to friends or to people, and I think one of the areas of my life I've struggled with in regards to um, I don't know if you call this morally or not, but I enjoy helping people, and there's a certain degree where it feels like it's something I should do,
Hmm.
or where it's just conflicting with other areas of my life, and I end up diverting to one over the other. Um, so that's definitely something I've been working on over the past year, maybe even more, um, to address. Like just understanding like the reasoning behind it. Is it something I should be doing? Why do I think I should be doing it? Um, and then not trying to judge myself if it's not something I end up doing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it w- you said something earlier that I found interesting, which was I think you talked about like primary ways of judging yourself.
Hmm.
And it got me thinking about how we judge ourselves, or maybe more generally, how we think about ourselves.
Sure.
Uh, and, just like everything you were saying there, like helping others, like a lot of people would definitely say that's a good thing. And I think in general, it is a good thing, but a lot of things are good things.
Hmm.
And so there's a certain way that we manage to judge ourselves for everything good and bad that we do. Isn't it crazy? Like, we can judge ourselves for doing something badly, right? Like, people would be like, oh, okay, I mean, that's kind of fair. But we can also judge ourselves for the good things in our lives,
Hmm.
like helping others. And, okay, we don't help somebody as much this time. And then we judge ourselves for that too. And
Sure,
it's
it's
like,
like just because you've deviated from some normal that you've had in the past, helping people, doesn't make that your bar, and then you've dropped below it. It's like you've already hit. It's like you've gone from nothing. You were at nothing and doing something, and now you were from nothing doing something, but maybe it's not. Relatively, it's different.
right,
So
it's
it's like
just different.
instead of comparing yourself to like comparing those kind of judgments of yourself over time, it's better to kind of look at the whole picture because that's kind of one dimension of you. It's like, oh, okay, the you that helps people, right? And then but there's also the you that's a human being that needs to survive and live and have a mental health and all these
Hmm.
and physical health. And those are conflicting roles in society. So maybe in those days where it dips down there, you need to be paying attention to yourself in other ways, and that's not where people's minds go immediately.
Hmm. Yeah, to loving yourself too.
Yeah.
Like, that's a great example of a should that helping others.
Hmm.
And so is school. Like, a lot of these things that we judge ourselves for are good things, but I think there's a piece of the equation that we are missing, and you mentioned it, which is loving yourself too,
Hmm.
and taking care of your own mental health. Yeah. um, that kind of brings me into this other topic that I had in mind, which was other ways to judge yourself. And I don't think I'm using great terminology here, but just off the top of my head.
Hmm.
Um, when you talked about your primary way of judging yourself, I thought, okay, what other ways are there to judge yourself? And I had some thoughts, but can I get what you had in mind when you said that, talking about your primary way of judging?
Sure. I have to remember.
That's fine.
Like I think I wasn't getting at the opposition to it. I was really just getting if this is kind of the thing that's in your mind that's nagging you, then that's going to be the first thing that you're going to use to judge yourself because that's what's apparent. That's what's right in front of you. Um,
Mm,
so I wasn't necessarily
I
saying
see.
that there are better primary ways of judging yourself, but there are. And like when you were just saying it, the way that you said it, I think just a second ago made me think of um, Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life, and he's got one rule. Which one is it? I have it pulled up here. Treat yourself like you're someone you are responsible for helping. That's his second rule for life.
Mm,
And I think that is a very good way to judge yourself. Treat yourself like you're someone you're responsible for. And that just changes your perspective of like who you are.
I could not agree more. I think I've learned that kind of lesson through different routes,
Hmm.
but yeah, that's a big thing. It's just another way of loving yourself, you know. And it's interesting because we see ourselves as so unique. Like, we judge ourselves oftentimes more than we judge others. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of us, anyway.
Yeah.
Um, but that it's an arbitrary choice to do that, to judge yourself more than you judge others, or to judge yourself worse than others. It's an arbitrary, just because I'm the person living through this experience, living as this person, suddenly I don't deserve the same courtesy that I give to others.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a fallacy. You know?
Yeah.
But about other ways to judge yourself,
Mm-hmm.
it's caught my mind because I thought, how do I judge myself now? Because I definitely do it differently. And I don't think judging myself is the right terminology either. Trying to think of how school was before and how it is now, right? For instance,
Mm-hmm.
that's topical for us. Um, Before, it was more or less a moral obligation, and there was a lot of stress involved with that and anxiety. And judging myself specifically, for being a good person generally, you should be studious and you should have a good work ethic. There's a big difference now, I think, and I think it comes down to judging myself versus judging the situation I'm in
Mm-hmm.
objectively.
Sure.
There's
Yeah.
a moral judgment that that's the shoulds, and there's the objective analysis,
Mm-hmm.
which is what I end up doing now, I think.
Sure. And I don't think that's mutually exclusive from a moral standpoint.
Mm.
Like, I think you can view the context objectively from a moral standpoint. Um, the other one is just more focused. Like, it's non-contextual if you're just looking at one aspect as opposed to looking at a context. It almost makes me think. Well, it makes me think of like the different things we learned in ethics class, like utilitarianism. That's very much about like a global optimum. Like, I want the best for this group of people, and there can be dips in that, can be dips, but they will ultimately support for this utility going forward. As opposed to something that's more Kantian, which is very, this is right and this is wrong, and that seems like it's kind of along the lines of what you're talking about. It's like the way you're judging yourself, this is right, this is wrong, period, black and white. That's how you're going to apply it to yourself. You're going to try to stick to those rules. Versus like, oh, this is kind of a global function that we're trying to optimize. Or maybe a more virtue ethics kind of way of looking at it, where you have role models, and of course that's a bit, well, role models, but also vices between means. So instead of being
Mm.
extreme on either end of the spectrum of some sort of virtue, you pick the middle ground. Um,
Mm. Hmm. Hmm.
so yeah.
That's fascinating. I think there's a lot to dig into in terms of there's philosophical argument, I think, to dig into here in
Sure.
terms of what sort of moral judgments we ought to make.
Yeah.
Um, but I think I want to leave off with a couple things that might help those who are maybe struggling with shits.
Hmm.
So I have something in mind, and I'll just go for it, and then if you have something you want to add, please do.
Okay.
Sound good?
Yep.
So you shouldn't. Christian asked me the other day, um, should I do this, or should I do this, or this, or is this more important? And he was stressing out. I mean, we all have our days. I was stressing out today, and that was a day Christian was stressing out. It was a little while ago now.
Hmm.
Um, and I told him, you shouldn't. You shouldn't go outside. You shouldn't talk to your friends. Because these were all things he felt were tugging on him every which way. You shouldn't, you shouldn't, you shouldn't. It's not about shoulds. And we both have like told each other this at different times now.
Yeah.
And it's a great thing to tell yourself
Hmm.
because it breaks you out of that mental loop. It's a thought process. It's a thought loop that you get into. It's a loop of shoulds, and oftentimes it comes with inaccurate, fallacious meaning, logic,
Hmm.
and it's best to just break out of it. Stop saying should. Drop the shoulds Don't say it anymore. Look at the situation objectively and stop judging yourself so much. You're a human being with feelings, and with the stuff in your life has different priorities, and whatever they are, they can shuffle, they can change. You're not locked into something. Try to take a deep breath. Tell yourself you shouldn't do anything. You don't have to do anything. It's not about shoulds. And reanalyze your situation is what I'd say, without this perspective of judgment and shoulds.
Damn straight.
Hell yeah.
I don't know if I can top that.
No need to top it.
No need to, I don't know if I can add to that. Yeah, I
That's fine.
100% agree. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It's very useful to just say you shouldn't at times, and then that just realize like, oh, maybe I don't have to, maybe I shouldn't, and then
Mm-hmm.
maybe you do end up doing it anyways, but you've kind of had that opportunity to release and realize that it's not something that's impeding you to like to do life.
Agreed. That's actually, we're running out of time in this segment,
Mhm.
but that is something I've definitely noticed, is that I am not less productive after I've dropped the anxiety and after I've dropped the worry
Mhm.
about shoulds and stopped telling me that I should. I have not gotten less productive. I've gotten 50 times more productive easily, and better able to plan, but better able to do like everything I want to do.
Mhm.
Okay. And I shouldn't do it. I shouldn't. I don't need to. It's not about shoulds. There's nothing to do with that. I don't have to. And that's what's so freeing is, and that's what's so freeing. And it's something that kind of elevates your mind to just a different way of thinking, a freer way of thinking. You're not tied down to things. You're not laying anxiety and stress on top of yourself. There's external things that are hard to do.
Mhm.
You don't have to keep piling stuff on top of yourself, these emotions and these thoughts. It's beneficial
Yeah.
in every way.
And I've also heard people say, instead of saying I should do this, you can say I get to do this. And then it becomes more of like a
Mm-hmm.
it just we haven't talked about this specifically, I don't think, but if you just rephrase what you're doing, it's like I get to do this, then it becomes more of a privilege than
Mm.
like something that you like. It's instead of a judgment, right? It's like, oh, well, I get to do this, and I get to do that, and other people don't, and that's generally a good thing for me. But then
That's true. Yeah.
it's
Go ahead.
yeah, I guess I guess the word privilege, or it almost like a gift to a degree. It's like I get to do these things, whereas other people do not get to do these things.
Yeah,
And
it's like you're lucky, and
mhm,
it's like I get to take advantage of this. Like take it. You're in the situation. Like, good for you.
yeah, it's like other people would die for what you have in some regards, right? Um, so yeah, just changing your perspective in any of these ways is definitely very helpful.
Agreed. And another thing I've been doing is I haven't so much done the I get to do this, though I definitely see the appeal to that and
Hmm.
stuff like calling the doctor's office. Like, I have a doctor I can go to. That's pretty great.
Yeah.
Like, not everybody does. I get to do a lot of things, but what I've been doing lately is, instead of saying, "Oh, I have to do this, I should do this," and I'm thinking about school right now. I have to do school. It's I'm going to do school. Like, this is my decision.
Hmm.
I have decided to do this. I don't have to. I'm deciding to
Right.
take ownership. And school does not own me. I'm choosing to do school.
Yep. And you're choosing it
Or
in the moment. You're not being like, my past self told me to do this, and now I'm going through with his choices. You're
for
choosing
sure,
again in the moment, which is more
for
important.
sure. And if you're struggling, like, pay attention to that. That's not something you just ignore.
Hmm.
Your mental health, your brain is telling you that it could be in pain, you know, and that's not comfortable. Everyone knows that. Pay attention to it. Try to do your brain a couple favors. Get some sleep. Get some water. Take a 5 minute break. Set 5 minutes on a timer and just sit down and just breathe. Stuff to clear your mind and try to relieve some tension.
Yeah. And if you're doing school and during this COVID time and you're at your computer all day, go outside for a bit. it's
Agreed.
crazy how much just walking and being in your thoughts will change how you go about life.
Yeah, or just letting go of your
Yeah.
thoughts, if
Mhm.
they're weighing you down. Yeah, it helps. Well, that was fun. I was looking forward to talking about that.
I'm glad.
Yeah, I like that topic.
It's a good topic. I mean, it's a
Well,
relevant topic all the time.
mhm.
So,
I couldn't agree more. So was our next. So was our next topic. Actually,
right. We must
it's.
transition to the
Let me.
lowercase r
Yeah.
talk.
Let me grab my hat. I want to pay respects to Daddy Musk,
Yes.
and what he's done for us. So if you haven't seen the news lately, uh, Elon Musk. Well, what am I talking about? News? It's not exactly new news, but
Right.
Elon Musk has developed the world's very first Catgirls.
It's a fact.
What do you think, Christian? Initial
I
impressions.
have many questions to start.
Hmm.
Like, we're mentioning cats, we're mentioning girls, and then we're putting these two words together. Which one is
Yeah.
it? Is it both? Is it a
Hmm.
person? Does it have feelings? Like, what
Right.
what are we talking about?
A lot of people ask these like, is it a girl cat? Did he
Right.
just forget?
Oh yeah.
Did he put it in the press as like, okay, was he dumb and he like just made a female cat and he suddenly thinks that's a new thing? Well, actually, no. A lot of people thought that, but that's actually fake news. It is a cat girl. It is a human girl with cat-like properties.
Right. It's somewhere on the furry spectrum. We don't know exactly
Precisely.
where though. Maybe
And this
maybe
this
that's like part of the agreement. Like you can find different cat girls on different parts of the spectrum.
hmm. So I have not heard of this spectrum yet, but I assume it would be kind of like a float value from 0 to 1, 0 being human and 1 being like fully cat,
Yeah,
or is it humanoid cat?
I'm pretty sure it's fully cat.
It's 100% cat. So
Yep.
somewhere in between is this new invention by Mr. Dr. Professor Musk.
Right.
Now, I have some personal experience here.
Mm-hmm.
I actually purchased a cat girl for myself. That's why the pillars are there. She's over there. And so I have an idea
Yeah.
of what's going on, and this is just one person. So don't just take it from me, you
Mm-hmm.
might have to do your own research. But it seems like there are variations.
Okay.
Because what I got, I assume, is actually a defective version because I'm not sure if she's alive or not.
Oh,
And
I was gonna ask
she's
you.
like, she seems to be like half cat, but like bilateral, like one side of her body. It's horrifying, and that's why I have put those pillows up so you can't see it, and so we don't
Right.
get kicked off of YouTube or stream canceled.
Right.
It's
So
yeah,
not
it might be in
conscience.
beta.
Oh, beta version's not conscience. Has no
The
conscious.
beta version might have no consciousness whatsoever, might not actually be alive, but
Hmm.
it seems like he has developed conscious living cat girls now. They just haven't been released to the public.
Right.
Now,
Yeah.
Christian,
Yeah.
what part of these cat girls is cat? Like, what aspects of cat is he injecting into the human body?
I mean, obviously the most desirable features, right?
Right, of
So
course.
like,
Okay,
I mean, we're talking about always falling on your feet. There's got to be a genetic trait there that he's trying to bring over.
for
Um,
sure. Yeah,
I think just being cute and adorable is definitely another one. Like people
that's a
admire that
bonus.
all the time.
Hmm.
Ears are a
Having fur
plus.
all over your entire body.
Fur is a plus, especially in the winter. I think these are for like the
That's
more
true.
northern or more southern parts of the world.
That makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah, maybe if you've got a white coat, it could be for the middle section to reflect all that light.
this
Um,
is true.
yeah, and then I guess there's some other traits like people like to smell things, and you can just take more advantage of that those neural pathways if you've got a better nose.
This is
Um,
true. I have heard that they have just switched out a human nose for a cat nose,
there
like
you
made
go.
no other changes except that, and that also counts as a cat girl.
Right now, you say switched out, and that makes me wonder. are these actually genetically modified, or is it like some weird doctor witchcraft science
I
going on
think it's
here?
half and half.
Hmm. Going the
So
Arnold Palmer route.
there are some parts that are genetically modified and others that are done surgically.
Right.
Yes, and is there witchcraft involved? I think so, but that's not public. He has not admitted to any sort of witchcraft.
Right.
That is not actually legal in this country. So I'm not making any claims here. I just want to point that out.
Right.
Yeah. Another feature I've noticed. I noticed in the change logs is that they also take the stature of a cat and apply it to a human.
Oh,
So it's a
that's
human, but about that
horrifying.
tall, and also scaled on this
And
on on this
just
axis. Yeah.
flesh? There's no fur?
Um. No, their body is actually scaled
So it's a
front to back.
human form, but
It's human
with
form.
the bounding box properties of a cat.
Precisely. Yes. Human form,
Wow.
and they've just like they're facing this way, and their body is stretched the dimensions of a cat. They're also the right height and the right width.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think I would want that model.
No.
Oh,
Well.
did we determine
Well.
whether or not these are actual property that you can purchase?
Are they property?
Like the one you have is a beta
Hmm.
model that has no life, so clearly that could be
Right.
property.
That didn't. Yeah. I didn't need to sign any papers,
Okay.
so it doesn't seem like
Maybe for the
I'm
1.0.
sending it back. By the way, that's not is not what I signed up for.
Yeah.
But are they property? Well, that's a great question, Christian. What is property?
Property.
Give
This
me
is
a three. Give me a 7 word or less description of property.
7 word or less.
That's extremely accurate.
Right. Okay. Property is if you touch it, it's yours.
Okay.
If you see it, it's yours.
Mhm.
If you have it, it's mine. That's property.
If I have it, it's yours.
Yeah.
Okay, right. That makes sense.
We're
That
going
makes
off the
sense.
7-year-old definition, and by 7-year-old, you can
Sure.
take that ambiguously however you want it. Could be by a 7-year-old, could be 7 years old. That's just something we came up with, a little bit ago. Um, but that's the
Well,
7-year-old definition.
it was actually from a 7-year-old 7 years ago. So it was actually when they were just born.
Right. Yeah.
They
Yeah.
gave this definition, and it's been really useful to us in all of our philosophical endeavors. Really, we've written a
Right.
couple books on it. It was
That
horrifying to see a newborn
individual
speak.
is a living miracle.
Truly, and they've actually purchased the first non-beta Catgirl. I don't know if it's arrived yet.
Is it
I
alpha?
haven't. As far as I know,
It's
it's
an
like
alpha cat
release.
girl. Oh, it's even beyond alpha.
It's release
Wow.
version.
The
Yeah.
release.
Now this 7-year-old is they're not the tallest person in the world. They're about 3 feet tall. They're a very short 7-year-old. And
Hmm.
so what I heard him say was he wanted something that he could ride, that he could sit on. So I think he's going to get the loaf cat girl.
Okay.
And so we're going to get firsthand knowledge of what that entails,
Hmm.
and what it's like living with one of those.
Right. Okay. And if he sees it, it's his. It's pretty. Sounds about right.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, we have somebody in the chat.
We sure do.
Rogue XX here. Rogue XS. Hola. Nice to meet you. Thanks for joining in. So I do have one more question
Yes.
about catgirls,
Hmm.
which is hello, which is should they be able to be elected for president?
Hmm. This is a
Are
very
they
controversial
human?
topic.
Right, yeah, it
I mean,
is.
we
And
already
I mean,
declared by the 7-year-old definition that they're property, and I don't think people are
mm,
property. So I think
right,
no.
right.
But there is a group
Okay.
of people that is petitioning for their rights, and we cannot neglect them.
Ah, I see. So they don't believe they're property then.
Yes, this group of people does not believe they're property,
That's going to upset the
even
establishment, I got to
even though they're
say.
manufactured, and even though you can see it and touch it and have it.
Even though you can see it, that I would have to see some of their arguments because that's just really bizarre to me.
I know.
Like this is mine, right?
Yeah, it's yours. You see it?
It's just intuitive. Like I'm
Yep,
touching it.
you're
It
touching it.
makes sense. And so like, you grab a cat girl's, 3 foot long thick hand, and I mean it's yours. I don't That's a strange thing. Ever since COVID times, we've been living under this new law that what you see and touch is yours because nobody can see each other or touch each other because, we're social distance. So
They wouldn't even want to.
America America has officially signed this into law now.
Right.
So to go against that suddenly is impressive. I gotta say, they got gumption.
Yeah.
I believe those are the uh, cat and girl love and society, Cagless, and I think we'll be having them as a guest at some point. I hope to. We've already sent out an email. We've sent out a letter. We've sent out a pigeon, and we've sent out man on horseback. We
Hmm.
hope to see back. We hope to hear from them soon.
And we also have
Because
to
we
hope
Go ahead.
that the other group, the opposing group, is not going to cut down all of our means of messages.
We have armed them with Musk's latest technology, which is pistols.
Mm.
We have armed them with
Electric
with
pistols.
Musk's patented pistols.
Right.
Yes, um, but we don't know if that'll be enough. To be honest with you, I'm gonna be real with you all here. I don't know if that's gonna be enough. Hey, Jack. Hi there. Um, Jack, we might need to come talk to you about this. I'll be real. Like, we don't know how to properly protect our carrier pigeons. They can't actually carry pistols. Who knew? Like, why did I don't know. How did they ever use carrier pigeons if they couldn't carry pistols?
I know. It's unprotected.
I don't get it. So we need some kind of protection for our messengers of all sorts. Better than a pistol. In this
Yeah,
day and age, when we have, bats, katanas, a pistol does almost nothing. So
it's true.
it's a scary world out there.
Pistols are almost old school tech at this point. Like Elon just upgraded them to be electric.
Which is like, okay,
Hmm.
that's cool. Okay, you made an electric car. I get it. That's cool. You're gonna make an electric cat.
Shh. Don't talk about that.
Call the patent office.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I'm
Give me a
serious. Send
second.
an email right now. Send it. Write it down.
We're good. I think we locked it in. It does take 24 months for the order to go through. So if anyone had that idea even a second before we did, we're done. I believe your cat
Okay.
girl is starting to move.
Cat, lay down. That's a different cat girl. That's actually a cat
Uh
boy.
oh,
That is a cat boy. Yeah. Remember, the cat girl is not conscious and doesn't seem to be alive. I can't confirm that because they don't have the same vasculatory, respiratory system as us. They don't have hearts, for
right.
instance, which is what the soul is stored inside. So, they're probably not alive.
This is true.
And to be clear, they don't show any signs of being alive. I just want to. Anyway,
Okay.
so cat girls, everyone get excited. This is an exciting new period of history. There will probably be civil wars over this between the two factions. Um, I believe they've already abolished the Republican and Democratic Party in favor of these two parties.
Yeah.
When was that? When was that announced?
Um
Thursday.
Thursday morning, I think.
Thursday morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So Fox and CNN have already changed their names to Cat
Girl.
and CNN still, which is Cat News Network.
Oh, Cat News Network. Right.
Right. Fox just named it to Cat, and CNN is now Cat News Network.
Right.
So exciting times, guys. Exciting times.
Indeed.
We're living in the future.
The future is here, now.
Future is here. Future is now. Future is Catgirls.
It is indeed. It will not be anything else.
Nothing beyond this point.
Nope.
We're done.
We're
History's
done.
over. Stop writing those
It's
history
the
books.
final form of humanity.
I think this was written about in Revelation.
Oh, goodness. Well.
So that was our real talk with a lowercase r.
That's
I hope
right.
you enjoyed it. Leave us a comment. Send us an email. Don't come to our house. If you
have a messenger
wanna,
pigeon, get it our way.
You can do that. If you can equip him with a pistol, so I can see how to equip him with a pistol, that'd be great.
Yes. You're probably just
yeah.
not using the right key combo.
It's probably true.
Yeah.
I can never remember if it's like Control Shift R or like Shift R. Or...
It's not even in the manual. I think it's a hidden one.
Oh gosh, I hate those. Pigeons really need like better documentation.
For real.
Christian.
Steven.
It's time for our next segment.
It is time for our next segment.
What's it called, Christian?
This segment is called What's Your World? Where we ask the question, what's your world?
Did you ask me last time first?
No. Yes.
Did you ask you last time?
You asked me last time first. So I get to ask the question first this time. Steven, what is your world?
What's my world? That's a great question. You know what it is?
What is it?
It's a world... You know turtles?
I've seen them around.
Do you know all the properties of turtles?
I couldn't iterate them, but yeah.
They have shells.
Mm-hmm.
Their shells often have octagons on them.
Yes.
They have flesh. They retract.
Yes.
They dig. And that's where they lay their eggs and stuff. They swim.
Mm-hmm.
They get run over by cars sometimes.
This is a property.
My world has all of these attributes.
Oh.
Standing on the ground, you stand upon a thick layer of dirt. Looking up, you see nothing but black.
Mm-hmm.
But you look straight ahead, and there's a bright band of light. Kind of looks like it's like this kind of a shape. A bright band of light that way, a bright band of light that way, dark in all other places. Now, what makes this interesting is, sure, you're in a shell, right? No. You walk towards one of these, and it gets farther away. You turn around, and the other one's farther too. The more you walk away from where you first appear in this world, the further you get away from either light on both sides. So you can go live further away, you get less light, but it's possible. They retract slowly enough that you can get a couple miles, but get too far and you could be lost forever.
Oh.
Now, another thing is that turtle shells have octagons.
They do.
And boy, does my world have octagons. When you take a step, the first thing you'll notice is that your feet are now octagon shaped. And when they get planted on the ground, they fit into this perfect little seam in the dirt. And it's like a suction almost. It fits so perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
It gets locked like a magnetic force into this array of hexagons. Another thing turtles have is that they retract and extend their body.
Yes.
So here's the thing about my world is that normal humans, there are humans in this world. Normal humans cannot retract or extend, which means they're but bean poles. They cannot bend down, they cannot move up, they cannot move side to side. What can are the strong net. That's what they call them.
Oh.
They're an unknown height.
An unknown height. Because you don't know how much they've retracted?
No, here's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
The only way to really see them is if they are a silhouette in front of the light on either end of the shell world.
Ooh.
And no one's ever seen the top of one. No one has ever been able to get that high, of course. And it seems like there's no end to where they reach. These strongmen are thoroughly extended. And they're horrifying, too. They're not nice to people.
Oh.
You know how turtles get run over by cars occasionally?
I sure do.
So do humans in this world. And the cars are the strongmen.
Wow.
These strongmen don't stop for anything. In fact, their feet do actually latch into the hexagons,
Mm-hmm.
but their path is very erratic, and their feet are more like 6 hexagons across compared to your 1. And when they start running, if you're not facing the light, if they're not in between you and the light, you can't even see where they're coming from. You have to rely solely on sound, which is constantly echoing inside this shell.
Mm.
So you have to be smart enough to rotate around to try and get him in the light to be able to figure out where he is and avoid certain death.
So are these strongmen the embodiment of chaos in your world? Do they have a motive?
Their motive is above any human on the ground, above even the worries of darkness. Their heads extend up and up and up and up, further past where you think the shell should even be. And they see further than anyone could imagine. And what it ends up being is if you were to follow their twisted bodies, their twisted black bodies all the way up, miles into the air, you would start to see that the openings of light start to turn. And these strongmen are able to see behind the light sources. It turns out there is no top to this world. There is no upper part of the shell. What's up there is a whole nother world filled with strongmen.
Oh.
These strongmen are trying to figure out why the humans have come to their world. They dissect them. They bring them up after they step on them, often accidentally. They bring them up and they dissect them like frogs. You see, the strongmen are see themselves as innocent creatures. But in reality, they're more like gods. They're the ones who built the place.
Mm.
They're the ones who laid down the foundation. And those hexagons, they're not actually, it's not like the floor attracts the strongmen's feet. The strongmen's feet created the hexagons on the floor. It's like their footprint
Oh.
all over the ground.
They have stepped every square hexagon foot of this
hexagon foot
of this world.
Precisely. And beyond them, beyond the furthest reaches of the edge of the shell, beyond the furthest reaches the strongmen can even see, is yet another entity. And the strongmen crane their necks to look up and up and up and up. And that's my world.
Wow. We're not going to hear about the strong men, are we?
The strong men squared. The stronger men.
The stronger men.
I got a little dramatic there.
Whoa.
Well, Christian,
Mm-hmm.
I'm equally as curious. What is your world?
Right. Well, you see, my world is an advertisement. It is one giant advertisement, and there is no puppeteer, there is no person outside of this advertisement. In fact, everything within the world is its own advertisement. Everything is trying to sell something. No matter what it is, if it has life, if it's lifeless, it is there. Its purpose there is to sell something. Whether it's selling itself, whether it's selling someone else, whether it's pointing to things to be sold, it's there to sell things. The issue with this society is that there is nothing to consume. Everything there is trying to sell, and there's no one there to consume. So supply and demand is totally off course, and they're just starting to suffer. They keep trying to sell more things, but the demand is just not there. These beings are anti-capitalist because they don't believe in supply and demand. They just believe in supply. Um, the demand is probably in another universe that they'll never contact because they're not making any efforts other than selling. If they were, on the other hand, making efforts to try to contact the consuming universe, then maybe, or world, maybe they would have hope in their efforts. Maybe they would feel fulfillness in all the things that they're trying to do, in their purpose, because they are physically unable to fulfill themselves. Their purpose is unfulfillable. And the
Wow.
leader of this world is just as miserable as the peasants. In fact, nobody can really tell who the leader is because they all just look just as miserable as one another. There's no hierarchy. There's no structure. The advertisements float around in the abyss of the world, in physical form, in mental form, in emotional form. They can all recognize one another, but none of them are doing their duty. In fact, color doesn't exist in this world. Color is often a key point in advertisements. It draws the eye to one thing or another, but they have no distinction of color, and they have no means of producing it. So even to one another, they cannot find a soulmate. They cannot see one another as something that is different from one another. They just see advertisements, emotional, physical, mental. Everyone's just trying to sell something, and no one can find what they actually want. This is my world.
Wow. That was dark. Wow, good stuff.
I don't know where that came from.
That was great. That felt like a commentary on our society, which is,
Maybe it was. Maybe it wasn't. Who knows what NI is doing up here?
oh my gosh, no one,
No
no
one.
one knows.
No one knows.
Well, guys, I think that's I think that's it.
That could be it.
I think that's the end of our podcast.
I think that is, well, the end of episode 2.
The
Installment
end
2.
of episode 2, not the end of our podcast. In
Right,
general.
right, yes. Ambiguity must be solved at all times during Real Talk with capital R. If there's ambiguity during Real Talk with the lowercase r, it is to be propagated and accepted at fault. At no fault? At fault. Either way, ambiguity.
By default.
By default, yes. Awesome. Well, thank
Guys,
you.
remember to take your ambiguity supplements in the morning. Remember
All of them.
Embrace your life, embrace the inevitable, and embrace the catgirls that will be coming your way.
Yes, you need to embrace them or flee from them, depending on where you come from.
There's no in between.
There's really not.
Those are the two options.
That's the one thing that ambiguity is going to stress you out about because you need to know which side you're on.
This is true.
So,
That's
yeah.
a real talk right there.
Real talk. Keeping all the R's in line. All right.
Well, it has been a pleasure.
It has been a pleasure. It's been wonderful. Thank you for coming to the podcast with a K. I will stop the recording.